Lily was small for her 10 years, but she was strong. Every morning, before the sun peeked over the dusty horizon, she'd be up, fetching water from the well. The old wooden bucket groaned with each pull, a sound that echoed the farm's own weary sigh. The farm, you see, wasn't doing too well. The crops were thin, the animals scrawny, and the bank was threatening to take it all away. Lily's parents were gone, taken by a fever the previous winter. Now, she lived alone in the creaky farmhouse, doing her best to keep things going. But a child couldn't run a farm by herself. Mrs. Henderson from the nearby town came by once a week to bring supplies and check on Lily. It was Mrs. Henderson who delivered the terrible news. "Lily, dear," she said, her voice soft with pity, "the bank, they're going to sell the farm." Lily's heart sank. The farm was all she had left of her parents. It was where she'd learned to plant seeds, where she'd chased butterflies in the meadow, where she'd felt safe, even after they were gone. "But where will I go?" Lily whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. Mrs. Henderson squeezed her hand. "The bank, they said you'll be sold with the farm." Sold. The word hung in the air, heavy and cold, like an old piece of iron. Lily didn't understand. Sold like the cows? Sold like the rusty plow? The thought made her stomach twist. She clung to the hope that somehow, some way, things would be all right. But deep down, she knew her life was about to change forever. The farm was a tough place. The soil was dry and cracked, and the sun beat down relentlessly. The old well coughed up water grudgingly, and the barn roof leaked when it rained. Lily's days were filled with hard work. She fed the chickens, their feathers dusty and dull. She tried to coax vegetables from the stubborn earth, weeding and watering with tireless effort. She mended fences with wire scavenged from the scrap heap. Evenings were spent patching her worn clothes and reading by the dim light of a kerosene lamp. Sometimes she'd sit on the porch and watch the stars, imagining her parents looking down on her. Despite the hardships, Lily never lost her kindness. She shared her meager meals with stray animals, nursed injured birds back to health, and always had a kind word for anyone she met. Even the grumpy old mule, Bess, seemed to soften around Lily. One sweltering afternoon, while struggling to haul a bucket of water to the parched tomato plants, Lily stumbled and spilled half the water. Tears pricked her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. "It's all right," she told herself. "I'll just get more." And she did, her small hands calloused and red, her spirit unbroken. She knew she had to be strong. The plants needed her, and she wouldn't let them down. She wouldn't let her parents down, either. She would keep trying, no matter what. That was the kind of girl Lily was. A small girl, but a giant of hope and determination. The morning of the auction dawned gray and heavy, mirroring the feeling in Lily's heart. A crowd had gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity and greed. Wagons and horses lined the dusty road leading to the farm. Lily stood near the porch of the farmhouse, her small frame swallowed by an oversized dress, watching as strangers milled about, poking and prodding at the things that had once been her family's. The auctioneer, a booming man with a slicked-back mustache, started the bidding. "All right, folks, let's start with this fine plow. A real workhorse, this one." Lily watched as the plow, which her father had used for years, was sold to a burly farmer for a few dollars. Next came the chickens, squawking and flapping as they were herded into crates. Even Bess, the grumpy mule, was led away, her head hanging low. With each sale, a piece of Lily's heart broke. It felt like they were selling off her memories, her very life. She felt terribly alone. Mrs. Henderson had promised to stay with her, but she was busy helping with the auction. Lily scanned the crowd, hoping to see a friendly face, but only saw strangers. Some of them even stared at her with cold, calculating eyes, making her feel like she was just another item to be sold. A shiver ran down her spine, despite the warm sun. The thought of being sold to someone unkind, someone who wouldn't care about her, filled her with dread. She just wanted to disappear, to run away and hide somewhere safe where no one could find her. But there was nowhere to go. The farm, her safe haven, was being taken away piece by piece, and she was powerless to stop it. Just when Lily thought things couldn't get any worse, a cloud of dust appeared down the road. A lone rider, tall and broad-shouldered, approached the farm on a sturdy-looking horse. He arrived late, after most of the smaller items had already been sold. The man dismounted with a practiced ease, his weathered face shaded by a wide-brimmed hat. He was Mr. Callahan, a rancher from the next valley over. He had a reputation for being a bit gruff, a man of few words. But people also said he was fair and honest, and that he had a good heart hidden beneath his rough exterior. Lily watched him carefully, trying to read his expression. His eyes, though framed by deep lines etched by the sun, were surprisingly kind. Mr. Callahan didn't seem interested in the farm equipment scattered around the yard. He didn't examine the tools or inspect the remaining livestock. Instead, he stood quietly, observing the scene with a thoughtful gaze. He seemed to be taking in the atmosphere, the sadness that hung heavy in the air. He stood apart from the crowd, almost as if he didn't belong there. He was different from the other people who were only interested in what they could gain from the farm's misfortune. Lily couldn't explain it, but she felt a flicker of hope when she saw him. Maybe, just maybe, things wouldn't be completely terrible after all. Mr. Callahan's gaze drifted across the yard, finally settling on Lily. He noticed her standing alone, her small shoulders slumped, her eyes wide with a sadness that seemed too big for someone so young. He saw the fear in her face, the way she clutched her hands together. He walked over to Mrs. Henderson, who was bustling about, organizing papers. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Who is that little girl?" Mrs. Henderson looked up, surprised. "That's Lily," she replied, her voice softening. "Poor thing. She's an orphan. Her parents passed away last winter." Mr. Callahan frowned. "And what's to become of her?" Mrs. Henderson sighed. "She'll be sold with the farmhouse. Part of the deal, the bank says." A shadow crossed Mr. Callahan's face. He remembered a time, many years ago, when he had lost his own wife and daughter to illness. He knew the pain of losing family, the emptiness that followed. Looking at Lily, he saw a reflection of that loss, a vulnerability that tugged at his heart. He felt an unexpected connection to her, a deep empathy that surprised even himself. He understood, in a way that others couldn't, what it meant to be alone in the world. He knew he couldn't just stand by and let her be sold like a piece of furniture. Something had to be done. He had to help her. The question was how. The auctioneer cleared his throat. "All right, folks, next up is the farmhouse. A fine piece of property, with good bones and plenty of potential." He gestured towards the weathered building, its paint peeling and porch sagging. "And, as you all know, the sale includes, well, let's just say it includes everything that comes with the property." Lily's stomach churned. This was it. A man stepped forward, his eyes glinting with avarice. It was Mr. Grimsley, a businessman from the nearby town. He was known for being greedy and unkind, always looking for ways to make a quick buck, regardless of who he hurt in the process. He had a reputation for being cruel to animals and even worse to people who worked for him. Mr. Grimsley surveyed the farmhouse with a calculating gaze. He didn't see a home, he saw an investment. He planned to tear it down and build a factory, squeezing every last penny out of the land. And he saw Lily as nothing more than a cheap servant, someone he could exploit without paying a fair wage. He smirked, a cruel twist of his lips. "I'll start the bidding at $50, he announced, his voice loud and confident. He was sure no one would challenge him. Everyone knew he had deep pockets and a ruthless determination to get what he wanted. Lily's heart sank. Mr. Grimsley was the last person she wanted to be sold to. He was the embodiment of everything she feared. The auctioneer, sensing an opportunity, grinned. "Do I hear 60? $60 for this fine farmhouse." A few hesitant bids came in, but Mr. Grimsley quickly shut them down. 75, he barked, his voice cutting through the air. 80, he followed, barely giving anyone a chance to respond. Lily watched, her heart pounding in her chest. Each bid felt like another nail being hammered into the coffin of her hopes. She could see the greed in Mr. Grimsley's eyes, the way he licked his lips as he imagined the profits he would make from the farm. He glanced at Lily, a cruel smile playing on his lips. It was clear he wasn't buying the farm to care for it. He saw it as a means to an end, a way to line his pockets. And Lily? She was just another tool, someone he could use and discard as he pleased. $100, Mr. Grimsley declared, his voice booming. He looked around, daring anyone to challenge him. He wanted everyone to know that he was in charge, that he would get what he wanted no matter the cost. Lily closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. It seemed like there was no escape. Mr. Grimsley was going to win, and her life was going to be miserable. She just wished someone would help her. The auctioneer looked around expectantly. $100. Do I hear any other bids? Going once, going twice. Just as he was about to declare Mr. Grimsley the winner, a voice, low and steady, cut through the air. $110. All eyes turned to Mr. Callahan. He stood tall and impassive, his gaze fixed on the auctioneer. A murmur rippled through the crowd. No one had expected him to bid. He hadn't shown any interest in the farm before. Mr. Grimsley's face flushed with anger. He glared at Mr. Callahan. "What do you think you're doing, Callahan?" he snarled. "You don't need this farm." Mr. Callahan simply shrugged. "Maybe not," he said, his voice calm, "but I'm willing to pay for it." Lily's eyes widened. She couldn't believe it. Mr. Callahan was bidding against Mr. Grimsley. A tiny spark of hope flickered within her. Maybe, just maybe, things weren't completely hopeless after all. The auctioneer, delighted by the sudden turn of events, rubbed his hands together. "Well, well, well. It seems we have a bidding war on our hands, folks." He looked from Mr. Grimsley to Mr. Callahan, a mischievous glint in his eye. "What do you say, Mr. Grimsley? Are you going to let Mr. Callahan take this fine property?" The bidding war began in earnest. $120. Mr. Grimsley shouted, his face red with anger. $130. Mr. Callahan countered, his voice calm and unwavering. $150. Mr. Grimsley roared, his eyes bulging. $160. Mr. Callahan replied, barely flinching. The price climbed higher and higher, each bid echoing through the tense silence. Lily watched, her heart pounding in her chest. It was like a tug of war, with her life hanging in the balance. She dared to hope that Mr. Callahan would win, but she was also terrified that Mr. Grimsley would prevail. Mr. Grimsley was clearly determined to win, his face contorted with rage. He saw Mr. Callahan as an obstacle, a challenge to his authority. He couldn't stand the thought of being outbid, of losing in front of everyone. Mr. Callahan, on the other hand, remained calm and composed. He didn't seem motivated by greed or pride, but by something else entirely, something that Lily couldn't quite understand, but that filled her with a sense of hope. She watched their faces, try to read their intentions, but it was difficult. All she knew was that her future depended on the outcome of this battle. A battle fought not with fists or guns, but with money and determination. And she could only wait and watch, her fate hanging in the balance. $200. Mr. Grimsley bellowed, his face now a mask of fury. He was sweating profusely, his hands clenched into fists. Mr. Callahan paused for a moment, his gaze meeting Lily's. He saw the fear and desperation in her eyes, and he knew he couldn't back down. $210, he said, his voice calm but firm. Mr. Grimsley's face turned purple. He sputtered, unable to believe that someone would dare to challenge him. He had always gotten his way, and he wasn't about to let some rancher stand in his path. But he also knew that he couldn't afford to go much higher. He had already bid more than the farm was worth, and his pride was the only thing driving him now. He took a deep breath, his chest heaving. $220, he shouted, his voice cracking. Mr. Callahan simply shook his head. "I'm out," he said, his voice quiet but clear. Mr. Grimsley smirked triumphantly. "Ah, that's what I thought. You can't compete with me, Callahan." But before Mr. Grimsley could fully savor his victory, Mr. Callahan turned to the auctioneer. I'm out of the small bills," he said, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a roll of bills. "I bid $300. Mr. Grimsley's jaw dropped. He stared at Mr. Callahan in disbelief. He knew he was beaten. He couldn't possibly match that price. He let out a roar of frustration, his face contorted with rage. "This isn't over, Callahan," he shouted, before turning on his heel and stomping away, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. The auctioneer slammed his gavel. "Sold to Mr. Callahan for $300. Lily gasped, her heart soaring with joy. Mr. Callahan had won. She was safe. As the crowd began to disperse, Mr. Callahan approached Lily, his boots crunching on the dusty ground. He knelt down, bringing himself to her level. His face, though still weathered and lined, was gentle. "Lily," he said, his voice soft, "I know this has been a hard day for you." Lily nodded, tears welling up in her eyes again. She didn't know what to expect. Was he going to be like Mr. Grimsley? Was she just trading one bad situation for another? Mr. Callahan saw the fear in her eyes and reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I want you to know something," he said. "I didn't buy this farm because I need it. I have plenty of land back on my ranch." Lily looked at him, confused. "Then why did you buy it?" Mr. Callahan smiled, a genuine, heartwarming smile that reached his eyes. "Well, Lily," he said, "the truth is, I don't need a farm, but I do need a daughter." Lily's eyes widened in surprise. She didn't understand. Mr. Callahan continued, his voice filled with warmth. "My wife and my little girl, they passed away a long time ago. And my ranch, well, it's been awfully lonely ever since. I saw you standing here today all alone, and I just knew that I had to help you. If you're willing, I'd like to take you back to my ranch and be your pa." He paused, his eyes filled with hope. "What do you say, Lily? Would you like to come home with me?" Lily's heart overflowed with happiness. A home, a family. It was everything she had ever wished for, everything she had thought was impossible. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were tears of joy. "Yes," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around Mr. Callahan's neck. "Oh, yes. I would love to come live with you." Mr. Callahan hugged her tightly, a warmth spreading through him that he hadn't felt in years. He knew that Lily wouldn't replace his lost family, but he also knew that she could fill a void in his heart, and he could give her the love and security she deserved. Mrs. Henderson, who had been watching from a distance, rushed over, her face beaming. "Oh, Mr. Callahan, that's wonderful," she said. "You're a good man." Mr. Callahan smiled. "I'm just doing what's right," he said. He stood up, still holding Lily's hand. "We should probably get going. The ranch is a long ride." Lily looked back at the farmhouse, a mix of sadness and gratitude in her eyes. It had been her home, but it was also a place of hardship and loneliness. Now, she was leaving it behind, embarking on a new chapter in her life, a chapter filled with hope and love. She squeezed Mr. Callahan's hand. "I'm ready," she said, her voice filled with newfound confidence. She was no longer just Lily, the orphan. She was Lily, Mr. Callahan's daughter, and she was finally going home. The ride to Mr. Callahan's ranch was long, but Lily didn't mind. The scenery was beautiful, with rolling hills, clear blue skies, and wildflowers blooming in every color imaginable. As they crested the final hill, Lily gasped. Below them lay the Callahan Ranch, a sprawling oasis of green nestled in the valley. A large, sturdy-looking house sat at the center, surrounded by barns, corrals, and wide-open pastures. Horses grazed peacefully, their coats gleaming in the sunlight. Smoke curled invitingly from the chimney. As they rode closer, cowboys stopped what they were doing and gathered to greet them. They were a friendly bunch, their faces tanned and weathered, their eyes crinkling at the corners when they smiled. They tipped their hats to Lily, their voices warm and welcoming. "Welcome to the Callahan Ranch, Miss Lily," one of them said. "We're mighty glad to have you." Lily felt a surge of warmth. It was a far cry from the loneliness and hardship she had known on the farm. Mr. Callahan dismounted and helped Lily down from the horse. "This is home now, Lily," he said, his voice filled with pride. He led her towards the house, where a friendly-looking dog wagged its tail enthusiastically. Chickens clucked in the yard, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of freshly baked bread. The Callahan Ranch wasn't just a place. It was a feeling of warmth, of belonging, of love. And Lily knew, deep down in her heart, that she was finally home. This was the start of a brand new adventure. Life at the Callahan Ranch was different from anything Lily had ever known. It wasn't easy, but it was good. She woke up early each morning, the smell of bacon and coffee filling the air. After breakfast, she would help with the chores, feeding the chickens, gathering eggs, and helping in the garden. The cowboys were patient and kind, teaching her how to ride horses and care for the animals. At first, she was nervous, but with their encouragement, she soon became comfortable in the saddle. She loved the feeling of the wind in her hair as she galloped across the open fields. She also made friends with the other children who lived on the nearby ranches. They would spend hours playing games, exploring the countryside, and sharing stories. Lily had never had real friends before, and she cherished their companionship. Mr. Callahan made sure she had time for her studies, too. He hired a tutor to come to the ranch and teach her reading, writing, and arithmetic. Lily loved learning, and she excelled in her studies. Evenings were spent around the campfire, singing songs, telling stories, and roasting marshmallows. Lily felt safe and loved, surrounded by her new family. She was finally starting to heal from the pain of her past, and she was building a bright future for herself. The ranch wasn't just a place to live. It was a place to grow, to learn, and to love. And Lily was thriving. She was becoming a strong, confident young woman, ready to face whatever challenges life might throw her way. Just when Lily felt like everything was perfect, a shadow fell over the Callahan ranch. The summer heat intensified, the skies turned a relentless blue, and the rain stopped coming. A drought had settled upon the land, and the once lush pastures began to wither and turn brown. The creek that ran through the ranch, the lifeblood of the animals, dwindled to a trickle. The cattle grew thin and restless, and the cowboys worried about how they would make it through the winter. Mr. Callahan tried everything he could think of. He dug deeper wells, rationed the water, and prayed for rain. But nothing seemed to work. The drought tightened its grip, threatening to destroy everything he had worked so hard to build. One of the prize-winning cows, Bessie, fell ill. She lay listlessly in the shade, refusing to eat or drink. The ranch hands tried to nurse her back to health, but nothing seemed to help. Bessie was a valuable animal, and her loss would be a heavy blow to the ranch. Lily watched with a heavy heart. She remembered the hardships of the farm, and she didn't want to see the ranch suffer the same fate. She knew she had to do something, anything, to help. But what could she do? She was just a young girl. She sat by Bessie's side, stroking her soft fur and whispering words of encouragement. She remembered how she had cared for injured birds back on the farm, and she wondered if there was something she could do to help Bessie. She knew she had to try. The ranch, and everyone on it, was depending on her, even if she didn't know it yet. Lily spent hours observing Bessie, noticing small details that the others had missed. She remembered her mother's remedies for sick animals, and she wondered if any of them could help. She noticed that Bessie seemed to perk up whenever Lily sang to her, and she remembered her mother saying that music could heal. She also noticed that Bessie seemed to be craving something green. The pastures were dry and brown, but Lily remembered seeing a patch of wild mint growing near the creek. She knew that mint had medicinal properties, and she wondered if it could help Bessie feel better. She gathered a handful of the mint and offered it to Bessie. To her surprise, Bessie ate it eagerly. Lily continued to bring Bessie fresh mint every day, and slowly but surely, Bessie began to recover. She started eating and drinking again, and she even stood up and took a few wobbly steps. The cowboys were amazed. They couldn't believe that a little girl had managed to save their prize-winning cow. Mr. Callahan was overjoyed. He hugged Lily tightly, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You saved Bessie, Lily," he said. "You're a true Callahan." But Lily didn't stop there. She remembered her father's stories about finding underground springs, and she suggested that they try digging in a different location. Mr. Callahan was skeptical, but he was willing to try anything. To everyone's surprise, Lily's hunch was correct. They struck water. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to keep the animals alive until the rains finally came. Lily's kindness and cleverness had saved the ranch. She had proven her worth, not just as a daughter, but as a valuable member of the Callahan family. After Lily saved Bessie and found the water, the bond between her and Mr. Callahan grew even stronger. He saw her not just as a little girl he had rescued, but as a smart, capable young woman who could handle anything life threw her way. He started including her in more of the ranch decisions, asking for her opinion and valuing her input. They spent hours together, riding horses, fishing in the creek, and reading books by the fire. He told her stories about his past, about his wife and daughter, and about the challenges he had faced building the ranch. She listened intently, learning about his life and sharing her own memories of her parents. Lily, in turn, saw Mr. Callahan not just as a father figure, but as a friend and confidant. She knew she could always count on him for love, support, and guidance. She felt safe and secure in his presence, knowing that he would always be there for her. They started adopting each other's habits and mannerisms. Lily began to develop Mr. Callahan's quiet strength and his unwavering determination. Mr. Callahan, in turn, became more patient and understanding, learning to see the world through Lily's kind and compassionate eyes. They were no longer just a rancher and an orphan. They were a true family, bound together by love, respect, and a shared sense of purpose. They had both found what they had been searching for, a place to belong, a reason to live, and someone to love. Their ranch was now a true home. The peace and happiness at the Callahan Ranch were shattered one fateful afternoon. A black carriage, pulled by two sleek horses, rumbled up to the ranch house, kicking up a cloud of dust. Mr. Grimsley stepped out, his face as dark and stormy as the approaching weather. He had spent months plotting his revenge, nursing his wounded pride, and scheming to take what he felt was rightfully his. He had discovered a loophole in the original land deed, a forgotten clause that could potentially give him ownership of the Callahan Ranch. He strode confidently towards the house, his eyes narrowed with malice. He found Mr. Callahan on the porch, whittling a piece of wood. Lily stood beside him, her hand resting on his arm. "Callahan," Mr. Grimsley sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "I've come to collect what's mine." Mr. Callahan stood up, his face hardening. He knew that Mr. Grimsley was a dangerous man, capable of anything. He would protect Lily and his ranch at all costs. "You have no claim here, Grimsley," he said, his voice low and steady. "Leave now, before I make you leave." Mr. Grimsley laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Oh, I think you'll find I do," he said, pulling out a rolled-up document. "I have proof that this land belongs to me, and I intend to take it, including everything on it." He glanced at Lily, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "Everything." Lily shuddered. She knew that Mr. Grimsley wouldn't stop at anything to get what he wanted. But this time, she wasn't alone. She had Mr. Callahan, and she was ready to fight for her home. Mr. Callahan stepped forward, ready to defend his home, but Lily gently pushed him back. She looked Mr. Grimsley straight in the eye, her voice clear and strong, despite the fear she felt. "Mr. Grimsley," she said, "you may think you can take this ranch, but you can't take what really matters. You can't take the kindness, the love, and the family that we have here." Mr. Grimsley scoffed. "Kindness? Love? Those are just words, girl. Money and power are what really matter in this world." Lily shook her head. "No, they're not," she said. "I used to think that, too. When I was all alone on the farm, I thought that having money would solve all my problems. But I was wrong. What I really needed was a family, someone who cared about me. And that's what Mr. Callahan gave me." She looked at Mr. Callahan, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. "This ranch isn't just about land or cattle," she continued, turning back to Mr. Grimsley. "It's about the people who live here, the people who work hard and care for each other. It's about community, about helping those in need. It's about being kind. Those things are more valuable than all the money in the world. And you can't buy them, no matter how hard you try." Her words hung in the air, a powerful challenge to Mr. Grimsley's cynical worldview. Mr. Grimsley's face contorted with rage. He opened his mouth to retort, but no words came out. He looked at Lily, then at Mr. Callahan, and then at the ranch hands who had gathered around, their faces stern and determined. He saw the love and unity that bound them together, and he realized that he couldn't break it. He had come to take what he thought was rightfully his, but he had underestimated the power of kindness and family. He had been so focused on money and power that he had forgotten what truly mattered in life. Suddenly, the document in his hand seemed worthless. He crumpled it up in a fit of frustration and threw on the ground. "You haven't heard the last of me, Callahan," he snarled, before turning and stomping back to his carriage. He climbed inside, slammed the door, and the carriage sped away, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake. Mr. Callahan put his arm around Lily, pulling her close. He knew that Mr. Grimsley was a sore loser, and that he might try something else in the future. But he also knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. Lily's words had struck a chord even in Mr. Grimsley's cold heart, and he knew he could never truly break their bond. He was defeated, not by force, but by the simple power of love. That evening, the Callahan Ranch was filled with laughter and celebration. The ranch hands gathered around a roaring bonfire, sharing stories, singing songs, and roasting marshmallows. They had faced a challenge, and they had overcome it, not with violence or greed, but with kindness and unity. Mr. Callahan stood beside Lily, his arm around her shoulders, his heart overflowing with pride. He looked around at the happy faces, at the cowboys who had become his family, and at the little girl who had changed his life forever. He knew that he had made the right decision when he had bought that farm. He had gained more than just a daughter. He had gained a whole new life. They feasted on barbecued ribs, cornbread, and apple pie, all prepared with love and care. The music filled the air, and the stars twinkled overhead. Lily danced with the cowboys, her laughter echoing through the night. She felt like she truly belonged, like she was finally home. As the night wore on, Mr. Callahan raised his glass in a toast. "To Lily," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "The bravest, kindest, and smartest daughter a man could ask for. And to the Callahan Ranch, a place where family always comes first." The ranch hands cheered, raising their glasses in agreement. Lily blushed, her heart swelling with happiness. She knew that she was lucky to be a part of this family, this community. She was no longer an orphan, alone in the world. She was Lily Callahan, and she was finally home. And they would celebrate that fact for a long time. Years passed, and Lily grew into a strong, confident young woman. She continued to learn and grow, both in her studies and in her understanding of the world. She became an integral part of the Callahan Ranch, helping Mr. Callahan manage the business and care for the animals. She never forgot the kindness that Mr. Callahan had shown her, and she dedicated her life to helping others in need. She volunteered at the local school, teaching children how to read and write. She also worked with the elderly, providing them with companionship and support. One sunny afternoon, Lily stood on the porch of the ranch house, looking out over the vast expanse of land. The fields were green and lush, the cattle were healthy and strong, and the air was filled with the sound of laughter and joy. She smiled contentedly, her heart filled with gratitude. She was no longer an orphan, alone and scared. She was Lily Callahan, a beloved daughter, a valued member of her community, and a force for good in the world. She looked up at the sky, remembering her parents, and whispered a silent thank you. She knew that they were watching over her, proud of the woman she had become. And she looked out at the ranch, her home, the place where she had found love, family, and purpose. All thanks to a kind-eyed rancher who had seen something special in a little orphan girl. A rancher who had changed her fate forever. Her smile grew wider, reflecting the warmth and happiness that filled her soul. She was finally home, and she was finally happy. And that was all that mattered.